What's up, Broncos country? Welcome back inside the UC Health Training Center for another episode of Broncos Now. Team reporter and host Sydney Jones here. And coming up on today's episode, we'll hear from head coach Nathaniel Hackett as he reflects on Sunday's loss. Plus, I'll have the latest injury update, and Broncos lead writer Aric DiLalla joins the show for a game recap. All that and more on tonight's episode. The Broncos now sit at 3-6 as they fell 17-10 to the Tennessee Titans on Sunday in Nashville. We heard from head coach Nathaniel Hackett today as he reflected on Sunday's loss, and Coach Hackett detailed the offensive struggles in both the run and passing game. And he said they need to run the ball more efficiently and consistently. And when it comes to the passing game, there's a few reasons why they haven't been able to find a consistent rhythm.
Unfortunately, it's been a bunch of different things. It hasn't just been one thing. I think that we need to be more consistent across the board with the play calling on how I adjust things for him and get him and I on the same page. And then it's just the execution. Something will go good, and then right afterwards, something might not work out the way that we thought it would, or there might be something with a route, or there might be something with Russ, maybe a protection. And so it's just more collectively as an offense, we have to be more consistent. That's what we haven't shown for each play over and over.
Coach Hackett also spoke on holding people accountable and constantly evaluating everything.
And first, it starts with me. We got to make sure that the play calls are the right play calls and the ones that are going to put the guys in the right position to be successful. We'll evaluate that. We'll evaluate everything that we do. We're 3-6. We're not where we want to be. Nobody's accepting that. That's not the standard that we want to be. We're not scoring enough points. It's that simple. And we got to find a way to do that. And so we'll evaluate everything, every person across the board.
The team has been in some really close games this season. 5 of their 6 losses have been one-score games. But Coach Hackett said it doesn't matter.
We're close, but that's not what we're here for. We're not here to be number one in close games. We're here to win football games. It shows that, the men in that locker room stay together and they battle all the way till the end of the game, which is what I believe in. And I love all those guys that are in that locker room. And it shows that we have the potential to win some of these games, but we got to get this stuff fixed.
One guy Coach Hackett made sure to give credit to, though, was wide receiver Kendall Hinton.
One guy I want to give credit to right away is Kendall Hinton. What Kendall did, he was under the weather, and he had not played that position of Jerry's that week because he was getting ready for a different position. And for him to miss practice due to sickness and then go out there and play at that position the whole game, and he didn't have any mental errors. He went out there, made some plays. He toughed it out. He did a great job.
And as we wrap up the top news of the day, let's take a look at today's injury updates. Coach Hackett updated us on wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. He said he suffered an ankle injury and will only be day to day. Offensive lineman Billy Turner and cornerback K'Wan Williams, however, are week to week. Coach Hackett said Williams is going to get a scope, and they're still evaluating Turner. And last but not least, Coach Hackett said they dodged a bullet with offensive lineman Graham Glasgow, and they're hoping he will be day to day. Now joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio for a game recap is Broncos lead writer Aric DiLalla. Aric, thanks for joining me today. Feeling recovered at all from yesterday yet?
Just another tough loss, it feels like.
Yeah.
Every week, Sydney, we've been sitting in here talking about sort of the same thing.
Yep. Week after week. Yeah, Aric, you said it. Really tough loss on the road. Another close game. This offense, they seemed to find rhythm early on. They got a 10-point lead and then just couldn't capitalize off of that. Couldn't keep going. Kind of what happened after that.
Yeah, one, I do think it's worth noting just the injuries have gotten to a point that it's really bad.
100%.
You started the season with an offensive line that by the end of the game, you had 3 guys in there that were not supposed to be starters, not even really supposed to be reserve players.
Right.
Wide receivers, you lose KJ Hamler in practice on Wednesday. You lose Jerry Jeudy the first play of the game. Javonte Williams obviously out for the season.
Yeah.
And Patrick has been out for a long time now. So you look at it and you think, okay, well, even if you come up with a game plan this past Tuesday, then, by the time you're at the second offensive play of the game, 2 of the main guys involved in that game plan, KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy, are gone.
Right.
The offensive line, I thought, actually played pretty well to start the game. Russell Wilson was sacked just once, and it was a coverage sack. But then by the end of the game, you've lost Billy Turner, and Quinn Bailey goes in. You lose Graham Glasgow, and Luke Wattenberg goes in. Obviously, there were problems with the exchange. And so that's, you don't want to blame anything on injuries, and the Broncos still should be better than the 32nd ranked offense in the NFL, but you can't deny at this point that the injuries have not taken a toll, and particularly in this game, Cindy, I think you could see the impact that had on the outcome of this game, but
Absolutely.
they've got to be better all around in terms of making catches, in terms of having throws that are there on time, in terms of being better in protection, making those big plays, finding consistency, being better on third down. I mean, we can go on and on here. When you're not scoring points and, you're limited to 11 or fewer points for the fourth time this season, that's an indication that it's not just one thing that's going wrong.
Yeah, you mentioned third down struggles. We saw that. I feel like we talk about this every single week, Aric, but, it hasn't changed each coming Sunday. And, Coach Hackett, he knows that. He said it after the game yesterday that they've just got to be better there. The offense isn't able to stay on the field. How do they fix that moving forward? I mean, I feel like we've talked about it a lot, but nothing seems to change.
Yeah, I mean, if there was an easy answer, I think they'd do it.
Right.
You need better play across the board. I think you need to put guys in position to make those plays. Again, we saw the Broncos have some success at times, but for whatever reason, they haven't been able to sustain it. And you go these long periods of times where you're going 3 and out, or they're actually a little bit better in terms of picking up at least one first down and keeping the defense off the field a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're not able to get in that rhythm and you kind of go cold for stretches of times, it's hard to figure it out. The Broncos, Nathaniel Hackett, I think he was kind of joking. He said, we're almost better on fourth down than we are on third down. You've got to get into third and manageable, and we've talked about how they haven't been great even in those situations, but it's just not a way to live to go 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 8. You're not going to convert many of those. And then I don't know if the offense needs to be a little bit more, they talked about having some max protect plays, giving Russ a chance to throw the ball down the field. They opened up with a lot of throws in a row, and it actually, I think, was successful to some degree. But maybe you've got to decide from a schematic standpoint here, do we need quicker developing plays? Do we need some shorter routes? What there's just got to be each and every week until this gets fixed, kind of a look at how are we doing things and how can we potentially change them? Because right now, as we mentioned, it's not working. Yeah.
You mentioned all of the injuries. One guy we saw step up was wide receiver Jalen Virgil. He seemed to be, a bright spot on offense. It was his first NFL game. His first NFL catch was a touchdown. Overall, what did you think about his contribution?
Yeah, good story. I mean, obviously, he's kind of waited his turn here to get a chance. He had the longest touchdown by a Broncos player making his NFL debut since 1975, when Rick Upchurch had a 90-yard touchdown from scrimmage. So it's been a long time. What he did was really impressive. He's got speed, which obviously you cannot teach in this offense. I think misses without KJ Hamler out there. But it just seems like so you don't want to take anything away from Jalen, but the Broncos probably were not going into the season intending for Jalen Virgil to be a focal point of this offense. And, even the guys that you were intending to make focal points, whether that's Greg Dulcich, Cortland Sutton, Cortland had a more productive game yesterday, but it's still there wasn't that kind of game-changing type play. Greg Dulcich, just one catch, kind of barely missed out on one that was thrown down the field to him. So they've got to find a way to get these guys more involved, more consistently. And again, it's kind of my answer to everything here is that there is no easy answer at this point because you've taken the chance to look at things and it still hasn't quite clicked. It's not going to get any easier because these guys aren't necessarily coming back. So you've just got to find a way and realize you're going to be it's looking like you're going to be in these slugfests, these low-scoring games for probably the rest of the season. So you've got to find a way to make one or two plays here or there. Russell Wilson said, can we just get one or two more touchdowns a game with the way the defense is playing? That would probably be enough, but still got to go do it.
Yeah, well, Aric, looking at this defense, another good performance put up by them. I mean, they held Derrick Henry to just 53 yards, and that's a guy who is – the past 5 games, I think he had 100 rushing yards. So, I mean, that was pretty impressive. We saw defensive coordinator Jerry Vero do a lot of different things out there. Overall, what did you just think about their performance?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing what they need to do. Yeah. I think Nathaniel Hackett said that they did enough to win this football game. Anytime you hold a team to 17 points, that should be enough. Obviously, there were things here and there that they could correct. The drive before halftime where the Titans scored a touchdown was a momentum changer. Right. Broncos had a couple of opportunities to get some turnovers, weren't quite able to come up with the football. The flea flicker play obviously was a big error, but again, they made those mistakes there and they still gave up just 17 points. And so the plan that Ejiro Evero had was very impressive. I mean, he played 4 down linemen, brought an outside linebacker to the edge, went to more of kind of a 4-3 concept. And you're right, they held Derrick Henry in check. There was one drive where Derrick Henry had a couple of runs that were, 7 to 10 yards, and that was it. Otherwise, they completely shut him down. And it's hard when you're not scoring points on offense. It's difficult to go out there and continue to have to feel the pressure of, if we give up a touchdown on this drive, the game's over. And so the fact that the Broncos were able to, give Denver's offense a chance, and even at the end of the game there, when the Broncos, they gave up a big play, but they buckled down and held them to a field goal to keep it to one possession, and the Broncos offense still had a chance. And so they're doing everything they can. We'll have to see what's going on with some of these guys that have gotten hurt, because again, you're asking a lot of some of these players on the defensive side of the ball too, but you couldn't really ask for much more from this defense. And it sounds like we've been saying it for weeks, but it's a shame that the Broncos are having to waste this sort of defensive performance.
Yeah, you're right. Well, Aric, there's still 8 games left this season, but 3-6, kind of hard to come back from. So what's the mindset, or what's the approach for the rest of the season here?
Yeah, one, you got to play for pride, and it is sad that at this point, with this team, with this roster, that we're talking about playing for pride at this point in the season, because the Broncos had much higher expectations than that. And so, but pride has to be the first step, and Russell Wilson said that after the game. Cortland Sutton apparently gave a speech to the team where he said, we've got to play for each other. We got to keep moving forward. And until you get, that 8th loss, even that 9th loss necessarily, you can still push forward and play for something. And even after that, this is a chance for guys to show they should be a part of this team moving forward.
Absolutely.
Play for that next contract, do whatever they need to do. There's always reasons to go out there and play hard.
Yeah.
But you're right, in terms of the playoffs, I think the odds dropped to 4% or something like that.
Still not 0, though.
Still not 0. But we can't talk about that for several weeks here until the Broncos are even back at 500. If that's able to happen at some point, it's not worth the time to talk about that.
I'm with you.
This week in particular, though, it's a rivalry game. You haven't beaten the Raiders in a long time. They're obviously kind of in the midst of their own struggles.
Right.
This is a game that you don't want to lose, both from the standings is one thing, but also just from kind of an embarrassment perspective.
Absolutely.
You don't want to lose this game at home to a Raiders team that's going through what they're going through. So you'd hope the Broncos are able to rally and say, hey, we're going to play with some pride this weekend and find a way to beat a division rival.
Yep. Well, we will see on Sunday as we're back at home. Aric, appreciate your time today and your insight always.
You got it, Sydney.
Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now. Broncos Country, thanks so much for tuning in today and every day. I hope you'll meet me right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube for another episode on Tuesday. I'll see you all then.